The morning began like any other. Across Earth, people went to work, children went to school, and the skies above were clear. No one knew that in just a few hours, the sky itself would tear apart. In the Pacific Ocean, a group of satellites quietly orbited above the planet, watching the calm blue waters far below. These satellites belonged to different nations, but all of them saw the same thing at the same time, a strange ripple in space, like the surface of water being disturbed. It wasn't a cloud. It wasn't a storm. It was something else. At first, the technicians thought it was a glitch, but then the ripple grew wider and wider until the black emptiness of space twisted open. One after another, dark shapes began, sliding out. They were massive, each one larger than any human warship ever built. Hundreds of them poured through the rift like predators entering a new hunting ground. Alarms went off in every control room. Messages flew between governments. Military leaders demanded answers. But no one had any. No telescope, no radar. No science could explain what they were seeing. In the capital cities of Earth, leaders gathered in emergency meetings. They didn't know it yet, but these ships belonged to an ancient galactic empire, one that had crushed dozens of worlds and left only ruins behind. And now, that empire had come for Earth. Over the next hour, more ships appeared until the rift in the sky glowed with strange light. The air above the Pacific shimmered with a low hum that made birds flee and dogs howl. People came outside, staring upward in fear. News channels cut into regular programs. Screens across the world showed the same terrifying image, a fleet, so large that it blotted out stars. Their hulls were metallic silver, covered with strange alien markings that glowed faintly. The ships didn't just move. They glided like sharks in water, with a slow and deliberate grace that spoke of power and control. Then, without warning, every human communication network went silent. Television stopped. Radio stopped. Even secure military channels died in an instant. A single alien voice replaced them all. It spoke in a language no human had ever heard, yet somehow everyone understood the meaning. People of Earth, you now belong to the Empire. You will surrender all military power, all technology, and all resources. You will serve or you will burn. The message repeated 3 times. Then the voice fell silent. In the streets of New York, London, Tokyo, Karachi, and hundreds of other cities, panic spread like wildfire. People ran, cars crashed, soldiers were deployed. Fighter jets scrambled into the air, but they didn't get far. The alien fleet's presence in orbit disrupted their systems. Pilots reported their screens going black, their controls dead, and their engines shutting down in mid-flight. Some ejected, their parachutes drifting down into the chaos below. At the United Nations, ambassadors shouted over each other. Some demanded that Earth fight back. Others argued that surrender might be the only way to avoid destruction. But even as they argued, a massive alien ship slowly descended through the atmosphere, coming to a stop above the Pacific like a floating city. Its shadow stretched for miles. On the west coast of the United States, people stood on beaches and rooftops, watching the alien giant hover above the horizon. The sea beneath it churned violently, as if reacting to its presence. Without warning, beams of light shot down from the alien vessel. They struck a human military base in Guam. In seconds, the base was gone, not destroyed in flames, not even turned to rubble, but simply gone. A perfectly smooth crater remained where buildings and soldiers had stood moments before. The Empire had made its point, and yet, far away from the chaos, something else was happening. Deep in Antarctica, far beneath miles of ice, an ancient facility came to life for the first time in centuries. Massive hangar doors, buried for generations, began to grind open with a deep metallic roar. Inside, a fleet of black ships slept in darkness. Their hulls reflected no light. Their shapes were sharp, angular, almost predatory. Red emergency lights flashed through the icy corridors as a computer voice echoed in a language older than Earth's oldest nations. Black Fleet protocol active. All crews to stations. Admiral authorization confirmed. In a control room deep underground, a single man sat in a high-backed chair, staring at the flickering holographic map of Earth. His face was lined with scars, his hair streaked with gray, and his eyes burned with a cold fire. This was Admiral Elias Rourke, a name no one on the surface remembered because history had erased him long ago. He had been waiting for this day. For 200 years, the Black Fleet had been hidden beneath the ice, powered down, forgotten by the world. Built in secret during an ancient war, its ships were unlike anything in human history, fast, silent, and armed with weapons the rest of Earth's militaries couldn't even imagine. Now, the enemy had arrived, and the time for silence was over. Above, the alien fleet spread across the planet's orbit like a metal web. Small scout ships entered the atmosphere, landing in strategic positions to prepare for occupation. The Empire's commander, a tall, silver-skinned being with 4 black eyes, stood on the bridge of his flagship looking down at Earth through the viewports. To him, this was just another conquest, another world to break and add to the Empire's endless list of conquered planets. His aide approached. "Our scans show minimal resistance," the alien officer said. "Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are few. The conquest will be simple." The commander gave a slow, cold smile. "Then begin." But far below the ice, Admiral Rourke spoke into a communicator. His voice was low and calm. "Wake them all. Every crew. Every ship." In the hangars, lights flickered on inside. The black ships. Doors hissed open and men and women in dark uniforms ran to their stations. The engines of the Black Fleet began to hum, not with heat or flame, but with a strange, silent energy that made the air shimmer. One ship, larger than the rest, slowly rose on a platform until its nose pointed at the sky. Its black surface seemed to drink in the light, making it appear like a hole in reality. This was the Nightfall, the flagship of the Black Fleet. On the bridge of the Nightfall, Rourke stood at the front, his hands clasped behind his back. Through the viewport, he could see nothing but ice and darkness. "Commander Hale," he said to his first officer, "status report. All systems green, Admiral. Weapons online, cloak active. We can launch at your command." Rourke's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Then let's show our guests that Earth is not theirs to take." The engines roared, not loud, but deep, like the growl of some ancient beast. The Nightfall lifted, breaking through layers of ice as though they were paper. Above the Antarctic wastes, the surface exploded upward as the black warship emerged. It rose silently into the air, snow swirling in violent winds around it. To anyone watching from the surface, it didn't look like a normal ship. It looked like a moving shadow, an absence of light shaped like a predator. High above, one of the Empire's scout ships detected movement and turned toward it. The alien pilot laughed. "One small vessel? This will be easy." The scout ship fired its weapons. The blasts vanished into the black hull without a sound. And then, without warning, the Nightfall was simply gone from the alien sensors. Second later, the scout ship's systems failed. Its lights went out. Its engines died. And then it fell from the sky, crashing into the frozen ice below. In orbit, the Empire's commander frowned. "What was that?" he demanded. His aide checked. "The readings." "Unknown, sir. A human vessel, but it doesn't match any known design, and it's invisible to our scans." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Invisible? No, nothing is invisible. Find it." But in the cold void above Earth, the Nightfall was already moving, hunting, And Admiral, Rourke whispered to himself, let the sky break. Tonight, the Black Fleet rises. The alien fleet did not waste time. Within hours of arriving, the Empire's ships positioned themselves over Earth's major cities. Each vessel hung in the sky like a floating fortress, casting enormous shadows over the streets below. People stared upward in fear, unsure if the next moment would bring light or fire. On the Empire's flagship, Commander Valor, a tall, silver-skinned being with 4 black eyes, studied the planet's surface. To him, humans looked small and fragile, like insects beneath glass. The corners of his thin mouth curled in a smile that held no warmth. "Open all channels," Valor ordered. A moment later, every screen on Earth flickered to life. Televisions, phones, billboards, even the giant displays in crowded city centers. No matter where someone stood, they saw the same image. Valor's face, cold and inhuman, staring directly at them. His voice was deep and clear, and though he spoke in an alien language, the meaning formed perfectly in the minds of all who listened. "People of Earth, I am Commander Valor of the Empire. You will surrender all your weapons, all your ships, and all control of your planet to us. You will obey our laws and serve our will. You will give tribute to the Empire in resources, technology, and labor. You have 1 Earth day to comply." He paused, letting his words sink in. His black eyes gleamed as he added, "If you resist, your cities will burn, your oceans will boil, your skies will be emptied of life. This is mercy. Refuse, and you will have none." The image vanished. The world went silent. In capitals across Earth, chaos erupted. Military leaders met behind closed doors. Some argued for surrender, saying that the alien technology was too advanced, that fighting back would mean extinction. Others demanded war, claiming that humanity had survived every threat before and could survive this one too. But in the middle of this confusion, something strange happened. Every screen that had just shown Valor's face came to life again. This time, it wasn't the Empire. The image was dark, shadowed, a black background with only the outline of a man's face barely visible. His voice was calm, steady, and unmistakably human. "This is Admiral Elias Rourke. Black Fleet Protocol is active. Do not resist. Yet. Stay hidden. Stay alive. We are coming." The message lasted only a few seconds before vanishing, but it was enough to send shockwaves across the planet. In a cramped apartment in Tokyo, a young woman named Ayaka stared at her phone in disbelief. She worked as an engineer, and she had read about the Black Fleet in old military rumors. Stories most people thought were myths. If the stories were true, the Black Fleet was a secret human fleet built long ago, designed to fight enemies from the stars. But no one had seen or heard of it in centuries. Now, it seemed, the myth had just spoken. Meanwhile, far beneath Antarctica's ice, Admiral Rourke watched reports of the alien broadcast. His bridge was quiet, except for the steady hum of the nightfall's systems. Around him, officers studied enemy positions, marking their locations on a holographic display of Earth. Commander Hale approached. "They've given us a time limit, Admiral. 24 hours. Rourke's eyes didn't leave the display. "Good. That means they're afraid. They want us to surrender quickly before we understand their weaknesses." Hale raised an eyebrow. "And do we know their weaknesses?" A slow smile formed on Rourke's face. "We will." In orbit, Commander Valor stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing sensor data. His aide approached nervously. "Sir, our long-range scans picked up something unusual." Valor turned. "Explain." The aide hesitated. "A ship, sir. It appeared for only a second before vanishing. It does not match any Earth design. No energy signature, no heat signature. It was black." Valor's smile faded. "Impossible. Nothing is invisible to our sensors." The aide nodded, but his voice dropped lower. "And yet, We lost one of our scout craft over the southern ice continent. No distress call, no wreckage. Valor's eyes narrowed. Find it. Whatever it is, destroy it. Night fell across Earth, but the alien fleet remained above, their lights glimmering, like artificial stars. From the ground, they looked almost beautiful, if one could forget they were here to take the planet. In the frozen south, the nightfall hovered above the ice, its hull blending perfectly into the darkness. No radar could see it. No satellite could find it. To the alien sensors in orbit, it simply did not exist. Inside the ship, Admiral Rourke gave his first order of war. Mark the flagship. Prepare for silent approach. We'll let them think they are the hunters until they realize they've been prey from the start. The Black Fleet had begun to move. The next day began under the shadow of the Empire's fleet. From every corner of Earth, people looked up and saw the same thing. Alien warships hanging in the sky like predators circling their prey. No one dared attack them. The memory of the destroyed base in Guam was fresh in everyone's mind. The Empire's message was clear. Resistance meant erasure. But far beneath the Antarctic ice, Admiral Rourke was done waiting. On the bridge of the Nightfall, the air was tense but steady. The crew sat at their stations, their eyes fixed on glowing displays. Outside the ship, there was only darkness, the hull's cloaking technology absorbing every bit of light, making the Nightfall a shadow even in daylight. "Target?" Rourke asked, his voice calm. Commander Hale replied, "Empire scout ship, Sector 14, alone. Orbiting over South America, they've been mapping military locations." Rourke's eyes narrowed. "And they believe they're safe?" "Yes, Admiral." Rourke's lips curved into a faint smile. "Then let's educate them." The Nightfall glided forward, completely silent. No trail, no heat, no signature. It didn't matter what sensors the aliens had. They would find nothing. In orbit, the Empire's scout ship drifted lazily, scanning the ground below. Inside, two alien pilots exchanged bored chatter. For them, this mission was routine. Humans, they thought, were too primitive to hide anything useful. One pilot leaned back, in his seat. "Do you think the commander will destroy the big cities first?" The other shrugged. "Perhaps. Or maybe he'll make them fight each other before we strike. It's more entertaining." Neither of them noticed the darkness sliding toward them. The Nightfall positioned itself above the scout ship, hidden against the black backdrop of space. In the Nightfall's weapons bay, a single device was armed. Not a missile, not a beam, but something far stranger. Rourke gave the order. "Fire the leech!" From the Nightfall's underside, a small black sphere detached and drifted toward the scout ship. It made no sound, no flash, nothing to warn the pilots. Within seconds, it attached itself to the alien vessel's hull. Inside the scout ship, alarms blared. The pilots sat upright, confused. "What is that?" I don't know. There's nothing on the sensors." The sphere pulsed once, and then every system on the alien ship went dark. Lights died, engines shut off. Gravity failed. The pilots floated helplessly in their seats as the oxygen systems failed. The last thing they saw was a faint shadow passing over their viewport. And then, nothing. From the Nightfall, Commander Hale checked his console. "Target neutralized. Admiral, no debris, no distress signal. They'll never know what happened." Rourke nodded. "Good. Now let's give them a message." The Nightfall moved toward the dead scout ship, releasing it into Earth's atmosphere. The alien vessel fell like a stone, crashing into a remote area of the Amazon rainforest. No cities, no civilians, just the wreckage, left for human eyes to find. Rourke knew the Empire would see it as an accident, but the people of Earth, they would see it as proof that the enemy could bleed. That night, videos spread online. Grainy footage from a satellite showed a black shape moving against the stars. Then, the image of the alien scout ship falling in flames toward the jungle. In hidden corners of the internet, whispers began, "It's the Black Fleet. They're real. We have a chance." High above, in the Empire's flagship, Commander Valor studied the report of the lost scout ship. His officers insisted it was a technical failure. Ships sometimes failed, even with advanced technology. But Valor's instincts told him otherwise. He stood at the viewing window staring at Earth. "This planet is hiding something," he muttered, "and I will find it." In the frozen south, Rourke stood on the Nightfall's bridge, watching the alien fleet through his displays. "This was only a whisper," he said quietly. "Next time, we speak louder." The Black Fleet had drawn first blood. Morning came, but the world still lived under the shadow of the Empire's fleet. The alien warships were unmoving, like giant blades hanging over Earth. They didn't need to fire. Their presence alone was enough to keep billions in fear. But far from the alien gaze, in the deep cold of Antarctica, something powerful was waking. Inside the Nightfall, Admiral Elias Rourke stood at the front of the bridge. His uniform was black, simple, with a single silver insignia on the chest. He looked like a man carved. From stone, every line on his face told a story of battles fought and enemies defeated. To his crew, he was more than a commander. He was a myth come to life. Many of them had grown up hearing stories about him, how he had once led Earth's fleets in a war no history book dared mention, how he had vanished after a final battle, his fate unknown. Most people believed he was long dead. But the truth was far stranger. Rourke had not died. He had gone into hiding with the Black Fleet, waiting for the day Earth would need him again. That day had come. Commander Hale stepped beside him. "Sir, your message is spreading. People are talking about the Black Fleet. They're calling you the Ghost Admiral." Rourke's lips twitched in the faintest of smiles. "Good. Let them talk. Fear works both ways." He turned to face his crew. "The Empire thinks they're dealing with frightened primitives. They've seen nothing of what we can do. That ends now." In cities across the planet, more strange events were happening. Alien patrols would land to take control of a location and never return. Entire squads vanished without a trace. Empire drones dropped from the sky without firing a single shot. The people began to whisper. Some said they had seen dark shapes in the clouds. Others swore they heard a deep, low hum before the alien machines went dead. And with each rumor, hope began to grow. On the Empire's flagship, Commander Valor reviewed the latest losses. 10 patrols gone, 3 drones disabled, a scout ship destroyed. The numbers were small, nothing that would normally concern the Empire, but something about it felt wrong. These weren't random accidents. Someone was targeting them. "Sir," his aide said carefully, "we've intercepted human communications. They speak of something called the Black Fleet." Valor's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" "We're not sure. Historical records are incomplete, but some suggest it's a hidden human military force." Valor laughed once, cold and short. "Hidden? Against the Empire? Impossible. Still." He ordered every sensor to search harder. Deep scans of the oceans, the deserts, the ice. Back on the Nightfall, Rourke watched the alien commander's movements on a holographic map. "He's nervous," Rourke said quietly. "That's good. Nervous enemies make mistakes." Commander Hale looked at him. "And when he makes one?" Rourke's voice was like steel. "We take it, and we don't give it back." That night, in a bold move, the Nightfall broke the surface of the Antarctic ice and flew low over the dark ocean. It moved like a shadow, no sound, no light. But in certain places, people on fishing boats swore they saw a shape pass above, blocking out the stars for a heartbeat. To them, it was no longer just a rumor, The Ghost Admiral was real. The alien fleet believed they ruled Earth's skies. Their massive ships floated in orbit like silent gods, each one armed with weapons capable of burning cities to ash in seconds. But that belief was about to shatter. Admiral Elias Rourke stood on the Nightfall's bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. A holographic display floated in the air before him, showing an Empire cruiser, one of their smaller warships, but still powerful enough to destroy an entire human fleet on its own. It was positioned over the Indian Ocean, scanning for hidden resistance. "Perfect," Rourke said quietly. "One ship, isolated. Let's see how they react when the prey bites back." Commander Hale checked his console. "Admiral, we're in range. Cloak is stable. They can't see us." Rourke's eyes were cold. "They will. Just before they die." The Nightfall slid through the darkness of space, silent and invisible. Every inch of its black hull drank in light, making it disappear to the eye and to sensors. It moved until it was directly behind the alien cruiser, so close it could almost touch it. Inside the cruiser, alien officers worked at their stations, unaware that death was hanging just beyond their hull. "Lock disruptors," Rourke ordered. At once the Nightfall's weapons systems activated. But unlike the Empire's bright energy beams, these weapons made no flash, no warning. The disruptors fired, and an invisible wave of force washed over the cruiser. Inside, the alien crew was thrown into chaos. Lights went out, consoles died, engines shut down. In seconds, the mighty ship was nothing more than a drifting shell. "Fire. Lances," Rourke said. Thin, black beams, so dark they looked like cracks in space, shot forward from the Nightfall and sliced through the alien ship's armor like paper. There was no explosion, no fire. The cruiser simply split apart in utter silence, its two halves drifting away into the void. From the surface of Earth, people looked up and saw something impossible. One of the alien warships breaking in half, with no sign of who or what had done it. Phones came out, videos spread. Within minutes, the internet was alive with a single question. Was that the Black Fleet? On the Empire's flagship, alarms screamed. Commander Valor spun toward his officers. "Report! What happened to the cruiser?" one alien stammered. "Sir, there was no attack detected. No missiles, no beams, no ships. It was as if something tore it apart from nothing." Valor slammed a clawed hand on the console. "Nothing does not destroy my ships. Find them!" Back on the Nightfall, Commander Hale studied the wreckage. "Admiral, no survivors, and no trace for them to follow." Rourke's voice was calm. "Good. Send the message." Moments later, every alien ship received a short transmission. The voice was human, deep, and steady. "You are not welcome in our skies. No location, no signature, just the words." The Nightfall vanished again into the darkness. But across Earth, and now within the Empire's own fleet, the legend of the Black Fleet was no longer rumor. It was a threat. The Black Fleet did not waste time. The moment their warships entered Earth's orbit, they moved like predators who had been waiting for this hunt for a very long time. The skies above the planet glowed with their dark hulls, each ship shaped like a shadow with teeth. They didn't speak to the Empire. They didn't send warnings. They simply began the strike. From the Empire's forward fleet, confusion spread. Alien captains tried to scan the Black Fleet's ships, but the scanners failed, returning nothing but static. It was as if the ships were ghosts, impossible to read or predict. Then, without a sound, the first wave of black beams shot out. They were not bright like lasers. They were cold, like void light, burning through Empire armor without leaving fire, only silent destruction. One Empire cruiser vanished in an instant, its hull eaten away until it was nothing but drifting pieces. Panic spread across the alien fleet. The Empire was used to dominating battles. They had crushed countless worlds before Earth, but this was different. The Black Fleet fought with precision. Every shot hit a command ship, a weapons platform, or a supply vessel. They didn't waste a single blast on unimportant targets. On the ground, people of Earth watched in silence, their fear turning into something else: hope. For years they had lived in the shadow of the Empire's power, told that resistance was impossible. Now they saw a fleet that fought for them, a fleet that moved like it had already planned every step of this war. Inside the lead Black Fleet ship, Oblivion's Edge, Captain Ardan gave no emotion as he watched the enemy collapse. "Take their eyes first," he ordered. His crew obeyed without question. Empire sensor arrays were destroyed. Their communications fell silent. Their ships began to drift blind in space. The Empire's commander shouted for a retreat, but even that was too late. The Black Fleet didn't allow them to escape. They cut through hyperspace engines and trapped the enemy in Earth's orbit, turning the battlefield into a cage. Then, as the last Empire destroyer exploded, the Black Fleet pulled back, not because they were tired, but because they wanted the Empire to understand something. This was only the beginning. The message was clear, even without words. You came for Earth. Now we are coming for you. The wreckage of the Empire's fleet still burned in Earth's orbit, drifting in slow, silent arcs. Alien bodies floated among shattered hulls, a grim warning to anyone who thought Earth was defenseless. But the Black Fleet was not finished. They had a final move to make before leaving. Captain Ardan stood on the command bridge of Oblivion's Edge, his gaze fixed on the blue curve of Earth below. "Open the channel," he ordered. His communications officer nodded, and within seconds, a broadcast was sent. Not just to the remnants of the Empire's fleet, but to every major listening post in the galaxy. The message began with no introduction, no threats, only a simple, calm voice. "This is Earth. What you saw today was not our full strength. Leave us alone, or the Black Fleet will come for you." Every word echoed through the deep silence of space. On alien worlds, thousands of light years away, leaders stopped their meetings, generals froze in their war rooms, and traitors whispered in shock. The name Black Fleet was already becoming legend, and now it carried a promise of vengeance. In the Empire's capital, the High Council erupted in chaos. Reports poured in about the scale of the loss, the impossibility of the Black Fleet's tactics, and the terrifying precision of their attack. One counselor slammed his clawed hand on the table and hissed, "If this is not their full power, then what are we facing?" No one answered. Meanwhile, on Earth, people poured into the streets, cheering for the unseen warriors who had fought for them. But the Black Fleet didn't join the celebration. They had already vanished into the void, their ships melting into hyperspace shadows. Their mission had shifted. Now the hunt was on. Somewhere deep in the black corridors of Oblivion's Edge, Captain Ardan studied a map of the galaxy. Empire strongholds were marked in red. One by one, they would be erased. His crew waited silently, knowing their war had just begun. Far away, on the edges of known space, smaller alien factions debated whether to side with the Empire or stay out of the fight entirely. But the truth was spreading faster than politics could stop it. Earth was no longer a silent world under threat. It was a predator that had finally bared its teeth, and the stars would never sleep again. The Empire's home system had never known fear. Its twin suns bathed colossal cities in golden light, and its planetary defense fleet was the largest ever assembled. For centuries, they believed their heart was untouchable. That illusion ended the moment the Black Fleet arrived. They came without warning. No hyperspace signature, no detectable entry point. One moment, the skies over the capital world were calm. The next, a shadow fell across the suns as Oblivion's Edge and her sister warships emerged from the void. Their hulls drank in the light, massive silhouettes blotting out the day. The Empire's fleet scrambled, thousands of warships surging into formation. The High Commander shouted over open comms, "This is our heart. Hold the line." But the Black Fleet didn't advance like a normal enemy. They spread wide, weaving in impossible patterns, tearing apart the first wave in seconds. Alien ships burst into silent explosions, their debris raining down into the capital's upper atmosphere. Panic rippled across the Empire's worlds as newsfeeds broadcast the impossible. Earth's warships were here, inside their very core. Captain Arden's voice cut through the chaos, broadcast on all channels. "Your crimes end today. You will never touch Earth again." Then came the Oblivion's Edge's main strike. A single blast from its spinal cannon pierced the capital's orbital ring, shattering its defense grid in a blinding flare. The other Black Fleet ships moved, like predators in blood-scented water, targeting power stations, military command hubs, and supply lines with surgical precision. This wasn't just a battle, it was an execution. Within hours, the Empire's fleet was gone. The capital lay in ruins, its sky filled with fire. The surviving counselors surrendered without conditions, their voices shaking. Across the galaxy, alien nations watched the live surrender, realizing a truth that would echo for centuries. Earth had not just defended itself, it had broken the strongest power in the stars. The Black Fleet didn't stay to occupy or rule. They sent one final message before vanishing into deep space. "We are not conquerors. We are a warning. Leave Earth in peace." And just like that, the predators returned to the shadows, leaving only silence in their wake. The Empire's flag was lowered, its war banners burned, and a new era began, one where the name of Earth was spoken with reverence and fear, because everyone knew. If the Black Fleet ever returned, it would be the end. In the months after the Empire's fall, the galaxy entered a strange, uneasy silence. Trade routes reopened, rival factions made hasty peace treaties, and warlords who once dreamed of expansion now clung desperately to what they had left. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. Rumors. They started in backroom deals, whispered in cantinas on forgotten moons, and traded for drinks in shadowy ports. Some claimed the Black Fleet was still moving through the void, unseen, striking at slavers, pirate kings, and secret military labs. Others swore that Earth had built more ships, far more, and that Oblivion's Edge was just the smallest of them. There were stories of entire fleets vanishing without a distress signal, and of derelict alien warships found drifting with no crew, their systems still running as if frozen in time. The most frightening rumor came from survivors of a pirate haven in the Torvac Belt. They said a single black warship appeared without warning, its hull bristling with weapons never before seen. It did not fire immediately. Instead, a voice in perfect Torvac dialect spoke over every channel. "Your crimes are known. You have one choice, leave or be erased." No one left. Minutes later, the asteroid station was gone, vaporized in a burst of silent light. Council. Intelligence tried to dismiss these tales as fear-driven exaggerations, but the stories spread faster than they could be silenced. In every sector, alien leaders began ordering ships to avoid the Sol border entirely. Even smugglers stopped running cargo through human space. It wasn't a blockade, it was terror. And yet, through it all, no official sighting of the Black Fleet was ever confirmed. To most, they had become a legend, a ghost story told to frighten ambitious warlords. But in the deepest reaches of uncharted space, a few ships' sensors sometimes caught impossible readings, vast, moving shadows where no stars should be. The galaxy didn't know if Earth was watching. They only knew that they might be, and that possibility alone was enough to keep the peace. It began quietly, without fanfare, just a sudden burst of encrypted transmissions that swept across every known frequency in the galaxy. Military channels, trade relays, even ancient unused communication bands all carried the same signal. No, one knew where it came from, but within minutes it reached every planet, station, and ship. The message was simple. A single line of text appeared in hundreds of languages, accompanied by a faint, slow pulse like a heartbeat. The Black Fleet is not gone. We are watching. For a brief moment, the galaxy froze. On war councils and pirate bridges, in merchant guilds and shadowy smuggler dens, no one moved or spoke. It was not just the words. It was how the message appeared. The encryption was unlike anything ever seen. Even the most advanced alien supercomputers couldn't trace its source. No known network could have reached every corner of space in seconds. Yet this one had. Some leaders panicked. Fleets were recalled. Defense grids were activated. Old grudges were quietly set aside as enemies began exchanging information on human movements. But there was nothing. No human ships, no official transmissions, no sign of activity from Seoul. And still, the heartbeat continued, echoing faintly across the void. It played once every few hours, an endless reminder that someone was out there. Unseen, but never far away. To the galaxy, it was a warning. To the few who truly understood, it was a promise. Because they remembered what had happened when the Black Fleet did appear, and they knew that if it returned again, there would be no survivors. The galaxy tried to move on, but the message refused to fade from memory. Days passed, then weeks, yet the heartbeat still echoed through the darkness. It became an obsession for some and a nightmare for others. Captains began reporting strange sightings, brief shadows moving across the edge of their sensors, enormous, shapes that vanished before they could be identified. On the rim worlds, entire mining convoys went silent. No distress calls, no wreckage, just gone. The trade guilds claimed it was pirates, but the pirates themselves swore they had nothing to do with it. In fact, many of them were abandoning profitable routes, terrified of the shadows that now haunted the lanes between the stars. Rumors spread that the Black Fleet wasn't just hiding, it was testing, watching how the galaxy reacted, measuring fear, and the more people tried to prepare, the more it felt like their preparations were pointless. No one forgot the last time humanity's warships came, and no one believed they would announce themselves before striking again. In secret chambers, alien leaders whispered about forming a new alliance, not to fight humanity but to surrender if the time came. Others scoffed, calling it weakness. But even the bravest could not ignore the feeling that the galaxy's fate was no longer in its own hands. The first sighting came from a scout ship near the uncharted drift sector. It was supposed to be a dead zone, no habitable planets, no trade routes, nothing of value. Yet the scouts' long-range sensors caught something massive moving in the dark. At first, they thought it was an asteroid field, until the shapes shifted into perfect formation. When the images transmitted back to the command center, the room fell silent. Ships, dozens, maybe hundreds. Their designs didn't match anything in the galactic database, but the angular hulls, the black metal, and the faint blue glow along their edges made the truth obvious to those who knew history. The Black Fleet wasn't a myth, it was real, and it had grown. The strange thing was, these ships didn't move like a military patrol. They weren't rushing toward a battle. Instead, they cruised with terrifying patience, as if they had all the time in the universe. Every so often, one of them would vanish into the dark, only to reappear somewhere else, defying known jump drive limits. The scout ship's captain didn't stay to learn more. He turned his vessel around and fled, broadcasting warnings across every frequency. But when help came back to check the area, there was nothing. The space was empty, quiet, too quiet. Still, the images were undeniable proof. The Black Fleet existed. And if it was gathering here, in the forgotten edges of The galaxy, it could mean only one thing. They were preparing for something far greater than anyone had imagined. 3 days after the scout's warning, a strange transmission pulsed across the galaxy. It wasn't sent through normal communication channels. It came as a deep, resonating hum that every ship, station, and planet with a receiver could hear. At first, engineers thought it was background radiation or some kind of stellar interference. But then, buried inside the static, a voice emerged. It was human, calm, cold, unmistakable. "We warned you to leave us alone. You didn't listen. Now, we decide how this ends." The message repeated exactly 3 times before cutting off. No location tag, no encryption code, no trace of where it came from. But everyone who heard it swore they could feel the weight behind the words, like a hand reaching through the void, gripping their very thoughts. In the Galactic Council chambers, panic spread. Some wanted to send diplomats. Others demanded fleets be prepared for immediate war. But no one could agree, because deep inside, they all felt the same fear. The Black. Fleet wasn't hiding anymore. It was announcing itself. The Empire's fleets began moving, but not with the same confidence they once had. Instead of charging toward Earth, they started pulling back from its borders, fortifying key systems and reinforcing shipyards. Admirals argued over strategy, while governors demanded more protection for their worlds. Everyone could feel it, the sense that something vast and unseen was closing in. Patrol ships reported strange sightings, massive black shapes drifting silently at the edge of star systems, vanishing before scanners could lock on. Entire cargo convoys went missing, their distress beacons found floating in empty space, the ships themselves gone. No wreckage, no bodies, just absence. The Emperor himself tried to calm the panic, declaring in a grand speech that the Empire still ruled the stars and that no ghost fleet could threaten their power. But even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed unease. For in the last week alone, 5 major Imperial warships had been lost without a trace, and on each bridge, before, they vanished. The crew had reported seeing the same thing. In the heart of the Imperial capital, alarms screamed across the palace. Communications officers stumbled over their words as they relayed urgent reports to the Emperor. One by one, outer defense sectors were going silent, not destroyed in battle, just gone dark, as if someone had cut the galaxy into pieces and swallowed them whole. Then, from the farthest border, a transmission broke through. It was shaky, distorted, and filled with static, but the voice was unmistakably terrified. "They are here. No sound, no light, just black everywhere." The crew in the control room leaned in, straining to hear. The voice cracked. "They're not ships. They're hunters." The transmission ended with a single image. A warship unlike anything in the Imperial archives, its hull darker than space itself, edges glowing faintly with red. Across its side, painted in bold human script, were the words "Black Fleet." The Emperor stood frozen, his knuckles white against the arm of his throne. He finally understood what haunted the Empire. This was not a human navy. It was something worse. It was vengeance, and it was already inside his borders.